Here we are, it's the last week of May, and that means it's time for a May garden tour. And I know I say this often, but this one is gonna be quick. We're in transition here in the spring garden. It's about week 11 of the spring garden here at the end of May. So I am transitioning things to the summer garden. So a lot of my spring crops are way past done. They've been pulled out, and a lot of my summer stuff is still super small. So it's not a whole lot to look at, but I can't wait to show you guys the summer abundance once it arrives. In the meantime, let's take a tour. Okay, so here is my full overview of the garden that I like to do once a month. And you can see she's kind of wild. We've been battling a lot of perennial weeds and Bermuda grass, but that's okay. And I have several pieces of shade cloth currently over the garden because it has been hot. It has been very hot, and we've been just trying to use it to protect some of the seedlings from the scorching sun. So let's take a closer look at things. We're going to start, as usual, over here by the raised beds and make our way quickly around. Okay, so this raised bed actually had a tough time this past spring because when I run the sprinkler, it rarely reaches over to this area. So some of the stuff was kind of exhibiting that. But I'm making it a goal to water this area a little bit better now that I have some tomatoes planted over here. These are all beefsteak tomatoes. I believe they are indeterminates. Have a volunteer lettuce. This is a carnation that I transplanted last winter. It didn't put on much of a show just because it got so hot so quickly, but this is a perennial, so I'm gonna leave it there and let it come back whenever it's cooler or next spring. And then my mint has finally bounced back as I've started watering this area a little bit more. Like I said, I'm gonna go kind of quick. Over in this bed, we have a lamb's quarter weed. I have spinach here that's gone to seed. I'm actually going to let it continue to go to seed so I can have some acclimated spinach seed. Because our area is so warm, I can grow spinach here, but you can see it's bolted already. And I think that if I can collect acclimated seed, that'll help it have a longer life here. I have some sedum. And then here I have Barry's Crazy Cherry Tomatoes growing up this trellis. They're doing really well in this area. So this is a note to self that the tomatoes really like it here, and they're doing especially well now that I've moved the shade cloth over here. And then we have one pickling cucumber plant there at the edge of the trellis. Okay, and this trellis right across this raised bed right across from the one over there. We have a few buttercrunch lettuce plants. I think throughout the summer and into the beginning of fall, I'm just going to fill this with lettuces because the shade cloth does a good job with giving it shade in the afternoon, and then in the evening the sun starts to set behind the house, and then this side gets shaded pretty quickly in the evening. So I think I'm going to continue to transplant more lettuces over here. I have a Gerber daisy plant that I got for Mother's Day that is still trying to bounce back, and then I have another Barry's Crazy Cherry Tomato plant. I think that's what this is, that needs to be trellised. And then I think that's a Suyo Long Asian cucumber plant that is starting to take off. I direct seeded a couple cucumber seeds here. There were 3. This one is no more. I tried to dig one out to transplant it somewhere else, and it didn't survive, so I have just this one left over here. And then back behind me in this bed is an extra Roma tomato plant that I didn't have anywhere for, so I threw it in here, and it's doing well. That's odd. I don't know what that is hanging out of the tomato flower. But anyways, it has its first 2 tomatoes, and they look so cute. Oh, there we go. They look so cute, and I think that got pollinated and should be on the way. The next fruit set for some reason there's no flowers. I don't know if that means it needs to be fertilized or if it's just getting too hot. Okay, and right this way in this large raised bed is my competition squash plant for the Johnny Appleseed Organic Gardening Invitational. This is a pink banana squash plant. So far, there's no fruits on it yet. The vine is still happily growing. It looks beautiful though. I'm excited to get my first fruits. And then this is some hay that we got to start mulching some of the areas that we've planted. We're gonna venture right over there and then make our way around. Okay, so these beds are ones that we've just been working on the past 2 weeks. There was a ton of tatsoi that had gone to seed that has been pulled out to save seed. I transplanted some zucchini plants here, and I think I'm gonna have to come back through and then direct seed something in the areas where the plants didn't fare too well. I think I'm going to end up direct seeding watermelon because they take so long. So I think if I direct seed them now, we should have some watermelon by late summer, early fall. I left these are all volunteer sunflowers. So I just decided to leave them there so that they can live their life. And then on the other side is where I sowed some more of my Johnny Appleseed Organic Gardening Invitational contenders. Over on the other side are tomato plants, so we'll take a closer look at those. I'm officially dubbing this area as Tomato Alley because I have two 12-foot beds on either side of me. They're about 3 feet apart, but as we've mulched, it's kind of moved into the walkway, so they're a little bit less than 3 feet apart. And then on this side, I have some of my Johnny Appleseed contenders, which include Cherokee Purple, Brandywine tomato, and true beefsteak. I think it's also called Fiji improved maybe, but I have several of those here planted along here. And then on this side I have some tomato plants that were gifted to me from Isle of Skye Farm and Nursery, and then I have plant tags down here, I believe, that have their names. This one is Indigo Rose. I have Indigo Rose here. And then I have 2 pineapple tomatoes, I think. Yep, these 2 on the edge are pineapple tomatoes. And then I don't see the plant tag for this one, and I said we were gonna go quickly. So let me turn you guys around so you can see that there's a cattle panel trellis here that I'm growing pole beans and cherry tomatoes up, and then I have some dahlias here as well. Okay, so here's another look at Tomato Alley. These will be trellised up twine up to an electrical conduit between T-posts. Same for this side. And then I have cherry tomatoes on the other side of the cattle panel that will just be trellised onto the cattle panel. Okay, and then here's where I have my pole beans. They're trellising by themselves very nicely. I was excited to see what their growing habit was gonna look like, and it's really cool. I did feel like I needed to fertilize these because they were kind of yellowing a little bit, and I think it might have to do with the quality of the soil, so I did fertilize them and they started to green up a little bit. There's 2 more cherry tomato plants. I have tiny tomatoes on most of my tomato plants, but none of them are ripe yet. And then here are my Arabian night dahlias. I definitely plan on taking more cuttings this winter because these plants have started to produce way earlier than my dahlias did last year, and the quality of the plant is really nice. Moving right along, we have this raised bed here, which a lot of that is starting to be done for the season, so we're going to skip over that and come this way to the Johnny Appleseed Organic Grow Bag, which has a few contenders for the heaviest sweet potato, along with some nasturtium, which have started to acclimate really nicely. and are really starting to put on some good growth. We have a pomegranate tree there, a currant bush, which I do believe that birds might have eaten a majority of the berries from this bush, because while the bush was full of flowers in March, I think this is the only branch that still has just a couple berries left on it. So I think it might be birds or some kind of critter eating the berries, which I don't blame them because there's not a whole lot of sources of water around here. So maybe we'll get berries next year. I'm gonna end up moving this plant closer to the house and then probably netting it so that the berries don't get eaten. Okay, and in my first 10-foot bed, I have my volunteer potatoes from where I buried some kitchen scraps, some calendula, several lettuces that are about to be done, a poppy, I believe it's called a Polish flag poppy, and then that is also a volunteer sunflower. It's one that I grew in my garden last year, and it looks really similar to the Ruby Passion sunflower if you search that one. And then behind me on the other side, I have some red onions planted here that we trimmed the tops for the first time this past week so that we could get some more size to our onions. The garlic, which should be ready to pull in about a month. I'm super excited for that. And then we'll definitely cure it, braid it, and start taking it to the farmer's market. There's some of my Shasta Daisies that I transplanted here at the beginning of spring. They have gotten so much growth to them. I'm really amazed, and I'm really excited to see what the flowers look like that they put out. The Shasta Daisies that I have in my front yard, their flowers have been a little bit lackluster, and I'm wondering if that's in part to not getting as much water as these do back here. But we'll see. I'm excited to see what the flowers look like. The ones up front have started to flower, but these haven't. The stems are very long, so I'm excited to see what the quality of the flower is like. And then we'll go to those 2 10-foot beds and then make our way back this way. So here I have a few zinnia plants. They haven't started blooming yet. I am not going to pinch these because I'm really excited to just go ahead and get flowers. So I'm not going to set them back with a pinch unless I can see that they're starting to flop over from being top heavy. I have my very first straw flower bloom over here, and this has solidified it for me that I definitely don't want to give up, and I definitely want to grow more next year. If you don't know the struggle that I had with straw flower, I was under the impression that it was a cool flower that would be hardy in my zone. So I tried to transplant it at the end of fall last year, and they didn't make it through the winter, and there was like 20 something plants. So then I tried again and tried transplanting them out again, and once again they didn't make it. And so I believe this was my third succession, and not all of them made it. But just seeing that pink flower, right now the ants are loving it. I'm not sure why, but seeing that pink flower, it's so beautiful. I can't wait to harvest it, and I need to search when's the correct harvesting stage to harvest straw flower. But seeing that just really, it just really encourages me that is a flower that I want to grow, and so I'm going to try again, and I want to be able to have a whole bed of straw flower. And then here are my first planting of Roma tomatoes. I think a majority of these I'm gonna have to replant these because I lost a lot of plants in a late frost. You can see it still has some damage. But this one does have 3 tomatoes on it and a couple more flower sets. So these are determinate Roma tomatoes, so I'm only pruning off the foliage, not the suckers. So I'm hoping I'll still be able to get a good amount of tomatoes from these, and then I'm gonna try again for a fall crop of Roma tomato plants. And then this one had some fruit on it, but ended up getting buggy, so I had to take it off, and since then I haven't seen any more fruit on this one. And then the remainder of my Lunix lettuce, it's full of aphids now. I am letting them have it so that they can stay off of my zinnias. Okay, here we have some sunflowers that are ready to be cut. I'm gonna go ahead and do those because I have 2 bouquets to make this week and 6 flower jars. So I'm really hoping to be able to make all of these sunflowers stretch as much as possible, and then I have some more over on the flower path to cut as well. Okay, and then these are what I call my market beds. This week I ripped out some snapdragons that were here. Yeah, it was just mostly snapdragons that were here, and I transplanted some beefsteak tomatoes. They're close to the trellis so that they can be tied to this cattle panel. Once these sweet peas are done making their seed, I'm gonna cut these out and save the seeds. I really enjoyed growing these sweet peas, so they're definitely one I want to continue to have in my garden year after year. And then I'm not sure what I'll put on the other side yet. Yeah, I'm not sure at all what I'll put over there. But this whole area is currently under shade cloth because these are some more of my competition tomatoes, which once again are Cherokee Purple, True Beefsteak, and Cherokee Purple, True Beefsteak, Brandywine. Brandywine is a potato leaf tomato. So, okay, so along with these tomatoes, I have some carrots. These have been here for a little while. I really don't remember when I sowed these, but I absolutely love the foliage. I've learned that you can actually make a pesto with carrot foliage, so I might try that at some point. I have been seeding my carrots extremely tightly because of all the pill bugs. I do believe that they have been eating some of the carrot seedlings, so they kind of do the thinning for me. So I'm gonna keep doing this spacing and see how it works out. These are some Shasta Daisies that I have here just growing. I'll probably dig them out at the end of the season and pot them up and then try to sell them at the farmer's market next year. And then I have my Sol Rudbeckia that made it to the garden this year. Okay, and it is also super windy today, so another reason why I'm trying to make this a quick one. I have more sweet peas along this trellis that are going to seed. I'm gonna let them do their thing. And then I have some cherry tomato plants here. I accidentally killed this one while I was trying to trellis it. But then the other one, this one has some little cherry tomatoes. I'm so excited. This is my first year growing cherry tomatoes. So those are super cute, and I'm excited for them to be prolific. And then my surprise lilies are starting to bud up. So we should have flowers. We should have lilies in a week or two. I have my chamomile that I haven't been able to keep up with how much it needs to be harvested. It's a good thing to be able to have such an abundant amount of chamomile, but if I can't get out here to harvest it, it does kind of just go to waste, but I can definitely save the seeds. And then once this chamomile is done, I will cut it back and hope that it comes back in the spring. I also have some lettuce planted at the base of the chamomile and some Berry's Crazy Cherry tomato plants planted just behind the chamomile so that it's getting some shade from the chamomile. And so far this has been working nicely. You can see there's a couple of Berry's Crazy Cherry tomatoes. And then in this bed is just majorly in transition. I'll probably end up planting okra here, but I'm not 100% sure. Right now it's just some snapdragons that are done and some daffodils that are done, as well as a volunteer sunflower. I forgot to mention that behind the sunflowers over here, these are 2 more Roma tomato plants that I thought were dead, but decided to just cut them back and see if they would come back, and they did. And this one has a tomato, so I'm glad I didn't give up on these 2. There was like 10 tomato plants over here, and I ended up pulling 6 of them. Yeah, I ended up pulling 6 of them because I thought they were done for, and I'm kind of wishing I would have left them, but I'm glad for the ones that I did leave that they're still here and they're starting to make a comeback. And then I also have some okra planted over here, which I recently discovered I can plant way closer than I thought. So that's what I'll be doing from here on out, is planting them super tight. And then I have a couple of zucchini plants that had a hard time at first, but are starting to rebound. And those over there are okra. and then some more okra right over there. So I think I'm going to end up direct seeding some here in the next couple weeks. And here's the flower path finishing up. It's spring. There was a poppy there that has gone to seed. This is a volunteer sunflower that's looking as lovely as ever. My experiment of trying to interplant zinnias with daffodil foliage that is dying back has worked out really nicely. When it was really hot and a lot of my zinnias were getting scorched to death, these here on the flower path were actually protected by the daffodil foliage, and now they're looking nice and green and healthy. Whereas the zinnias that I planted on this side, there was zinnias here and they've all been burnt up. So that's the only remnant of the surviving zinnia. So I'm definitely going to do that again next year, is to interplant zinnias with daffodils once the daffodils are done for the season. And then I have some sunflowers here that should have been cut way earlier in the day. I can see ants in them already, and I do need to use these this week. So I'm going to shake them out, harvest them, and put them in the flower fridge to condition. And so that's what we have going on here. There's some dahlia tubers back there that I need to pull out and try to wake up inside. Okay, and so that is it. Me trying to go quickly. And I think what I'm going to do is next week do another quick tour, but of the front yard garden, where we're trying to transform our front yard to a micro farm. We have 2 beds out there now, and they've grown beautifully over these past couple months, but I wanted this tour to be quick, so I'm not highlighting those right now. I'll put those in a separate video, and I'll probably start a separate series for the front yard garden so that these backyard garden tours aren't too long. So there you have it. That is our May garden tour. I'm excited to show you how it looks in June, because at that point the stuff that's a little bit smaller now should actually be producing fruit. Fruit should be ripening up, and everything should just look way more abundant, and hopefully by that point we'll have some of the weeds under control. So thank you so much for joining me for this garden tour, and until next time, keep learning and keep growing.